So, this is a topic that I have written about five or six or maybe even seven times. And I only bring that up to say that I started writing about what to say or what not to say to your friends who are struggling to conceive actually as soon as I had my babies. It was only then that I could really reflect and process some of what we had been through over the previous 6 years, where I realized that people didn't actually know what to say because all I knew was they had said a lot of the quote unquote wrong things. And I don't mean this in any judgmental way, although at the time I did judge you because I was feeling so hurt on the inside and sometimes frustrated that we weren't getting the right response. But we don't talk about what is the right thing to say when somebody's struggling to conceive. Sometimes we get into the more obvious things like don't ask them if they're having planning to have kids. We used to ask that all the time, and now we finally stopped asking that question in most places, and also depending on your generation. But there are other things that can really amplify the pain that your friend or loved one might be going through, maybe what you're going through. And so I wanted to make a full podcast episode about it, really as a resource if you are struggling with this. If you are going through infertility, you can easily send this to your people without having to have a big conversation with them about it. And maybe they will learn the right thing to say or how to check in with you. And if you're supporting somebody who's going through infertility, this is a way to really tune in to what they want you to say in terms of showing up for them. So it's obviously not a surprise that when you realize you might have to go through infertility treatment, and I by that I mean generally IVF. Of course, there might be a donor egg, donor embryo, donor sperm, IUI, surrogacy. It's a broad topic, but when you aren't doing it the way that they always used to do it, doing a what comes naturally kind of way, there's resentment immediately. And so even though people are checking in with you and want you to share your journey with them, it can trigger you and remind you that you're not doing this thing that a lot of other people can do without spending time, money, and resources to get there. And by the way, I just want to say for those of you going through it or supporting someone going through it, I did learn to hate the word naturally. Do you think you might get pregnant naturally? I don't want to be going through medicated treatment, but wanting a baby is the most natural thing in the world, one of the most natural things in the world, or not wanting one, but knowing what your life might look like. And so calling it anything other than natural or calling babies that come from intercourse the natural way is actually a pretty hurtful term, even though we think we're saying the right thing. So, we know that when you're going through infertility, you can feel lonely, you can feel isolated, you can feel anxiety ridden, and of course, depressed, distressed, all the things. And unless you've gone through it or are going through it, it's actually really hard to understand. And there isn't an expectation that you would understand, but there are different ways to navigate it. So, these are the five top things that I would not say to somebody going through infertility and what to say instead. Number one, in no particular order, although this one is a huge pet peeve of mine. Just relax. That's when it happens. You just need to go on a vacation. People who are mourning the loss of a pregnancy or who are going through assisted medicated treatment for fertility are not going to relax. And they're definitely not going to relax because you told them to. And you know what? Lots of stressed people get pregnant. So it's really not a great idea to tell them to relax, to take a vacation, to stop counting and planning. That's when it will happen. Nobody going through it wants to hear that. Relaxation is actually not a medically proven method of pregnancy or towards a positive pregnancy test. So, what you can do instead is just listen. I know, I know. Isn't it crazy? Just listen. It's enough. All your friend needs to hear from you is that you're there with them and there for them, that you're willing to hold a hand or lend an ear or be a shoulder to cry on. And what that might look like is, last time we talked, I know that you guys were trying. You don't have to keep me updated or let me know what's going on. But if you do want to talk about it, I want you to know that I'm here for you. It's so easy, guys. And if you've been around a while, you know that I always say honesty is the best policy. So if you don't know how to be honest with your friend and exactly what to tell them, that's what you tell them. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I want you to know that I haven't forgotten about the fact that you guys were doing IVF or whatever the case may be. So, after a loss of some kind, I think a lot of people feel tempted to say, and by loss, I mean miscarriage. I just hate that word. Pregnancy loss, however you like to look at it. It's tempting to say, oh, at least you know you can get pregnant now. Yeah, it means I got pregnant. Maybe it means I got pregnant once. And I think people have an innate human nature where they want to go to the positivity. They can't sit in the uncomfortableness of the feeling. But just because you got pregnant once and then had a miscarriage, there's actually no proof that you might get pregnant again. There's no proof that you can carry a healthy baby to term. And maybe the person who's had the loss hasn't fully mourned the loss yet. And so immediately going to, well, you can try again or you can at least get pregnant doesn't give them the time that they need to process the loss and mourn it appropriately for them. So you want to treat a miscarriage like you would treat any other loss. If somebody lost a parent, you wouldn't say, at least you have another parent. It's really a loss. It really needs and deserves to be grieved. And I want you to remember and honor that when you're talking to people who've had any kind of loss. Another one that's kind of a pet peeve is, oh my God, you're doing IVF. My cousin's best friend's neighbor had IVF and they have like 5 kids now. Great for them. We are not in the same boat. We might not have the same issue. We might not have the same finances. We might not have the same body. We definitely don't have the same body. And so, even though, again, you might be pushing to the positive of like, look what might be possible for you because it was possible for someone else, it is not a default place to start. Let your friend ask, do you know anyone that had success with IVF? And then you can say what you want. But generally, it's irrelevant. It's not like, well, this person made a fruit salad, so you'll be able to make a fruit salad. It's completely different. And I want to make sure that you honor and acknowledge and make the person who's struggling feel seen. And by talking about somebody else who had a different experience, you are not helping them feel seen. Again, you can go back to, I don't know if you feel like talking about it right now, but last time we spoke, you were going through IVF. And if you do want to talk about it, I'm here for you. Okay. Along the lines of what not to say are the have you trieds. And that's actually what really inspired this episode this week because a client of mine had somebody say to them, why don't you just do surrogacy? Why don't you just, at least you can, have you tried? These are all things and statements that should be avoided. So it'll happen when it's meant to be. Have you tried? This kind of goes back to the relaxed vacation. Have you tried relaxing? Then it will happen. But then it also comes into, well, have you tried IVF? Maybe you have, and maybe it's gone really bad and you don't really want to tell that person, so don't ask. Or maybe you've said, have you tried every other day? That was something that somebody said to us. Oh, well, have you guys tried every other day? That's what worked for us. Guys, when you're going through medical treatment for IVF, for infertility, in IUI, whatever the situation may be, chances are you've already tried everything. You're already seeking medical treatment. Ideally, you're seeing a fertility coach. Maybe you're even seeing a therapist. Your idea of every other day is not going to be the thing that fixes it. So let's go back to what you should say. Guess what it's going to be? I'm here for you, and I will listen to you as much or as little as would be helpful for you to share. My number one most important thing of what not to say is nothing. People feel so tempted not to bring up the bad in your life, which I understand and it makes sense. You don't want to make somebody feel badly, but let me just tell you that if someone's going through fertility treatment, miscarriage, IUI, you're not reminding them that they're going through something bad. They already know and they're thinking about it all the time. So by you not bringing it up, what you're actually doing is not making them feel seen, not making them feel heard, not making them feel acknowledged. So while you might be uncomfortable bringing up something that might trigger some sadness in them, again, we go back to honesty is the best policy, which is I don't know that you want to talk about it, but I just want you to know that I remember you're going through this and it must feel really hard. And if you do want to talk about it, I'm here for you. It's actually really simple in some ways. So yeah, just in closing, another way to really support somebody who's going through is asking questions. And by this, I mean very general questions, not specific questions about treatment, not when they're going to be getting results, but how can I help you feel most supported? What is most helpful to you at this time? And they might say nothing and they might want nothing and they might be in a position where they're too distraught to tell you what they need. And then your job is to follow up accordingly. You don't want to say something like, well, keep me posted, because then it's on them to have to keep you posted. And you don't want to give them another job, right? You want them to know that you're here for them. And look, the questions that you ask and the questions that your loved one may need might change over time, and that's okay. These are not written in stone. Really, the bottom line is to be honest, to show up, for you to take the initiative to check in with your friend and not leave it to them to check in with you. I wanted to share this around this time of year because we all know the holidays can be particularly troubling, trying, triggering, all the T's. And so I hope that if you're supporting somebody else going through infertility or you yourself are going through infertility, this makes you feel seen and heard and like you have a better understanding of what to do. I will also link to some of the articles that I've written on the same topic. Overall, I'm wishing you a beautiful and happy holiday season. Please remember, you don't have to go through this alone. If you are struggling right now, I want you to kick off the new year in your best possible mindset. Reach out to me, grab a 15-minute call, and let's see if I can help lighten the load for you. Follow me over at Women's Wellness Pod on Instagram or at Abbe Feder at Encircle Fertility, and I'll see you soon.